I think the other big story we need to talk about is something that broke post markets and of course here on NDTV Profit. GQG in a note to clients has explained their stance on all the developments around the Adani group in the last few days and has completely doubled down on their investments, saying that they believe the fundamentals of the group companies are strong. They also stated that the action by the Department of Justice is against individuals and not the companies. In fact, 4 or 5 key reasons, and I'll just put them out for you before we get to Sajeet for his view on more, on why GQG's letter is so important and what they're saying. First, they say that the action is against individual employees and not the group companies. They also say that the action is restricted to Adani Green Enterprise Limited and not the entire group. They go on to point out how there have been a whole host of other very storied and well-known companies that have faced similar action with the Department of Justice in the past, and their names like Airbus, etc. over there. So a very large set of companies, that Oracle among them, that have faced this in the past. They also go on to point out that the Department of Justice and this entire group of people is under transition after the Trump administration comes in, and they feel that the Indian government will continue to back the Adani group because they're the largest infrastructure player. So a lot of positives there coming in. Sajeet, of course, joins us now in the studio. Sajeet, explain to us why it's important when the statement comes from a GQG.
So, to give it a perspective, GQG is one of the first investors after the Hindenburg episode that kind of happened, where they entered into various Adani stocks and bought significant stake. Today, that stake value is close to $9 billion, or nearly 5 to 6% of their entire assets under management, which is there. So, it becomes one of the largest investor in Adani Group, and a statement from them is a very important statement because they hold large positions in that. Because as part of the emerging market fund and other their global fund, they have significant exposure and to all the Adani Group companies. So when GQG says that none of the Adani Group companies have been indicted, it basically gives a clean sheet to all the companies which is there in the market, which are listed in the Indian markets, and also it also gives a idea of de-risking individuals from the companies, because the indictment has been against 3 individuals and the companies have been punished in the market, and we saw a sharp correction last week in Adani stocks, but they recovered in the last 2 trading sessions and regained almost whatever they lost. So it comes in at a time when a largest investor is backing the group and the companies, because they believe that all these companies are core infrastructure companies. They have good cash flows. Their EBITDA level, debt to EBITDA levels are much lower. The portfolio debt to EBITDA is around 2.5 times, which is a very comfortable level, and the cash generation is also at a very healthy pace. So if you look at the exposure that Adani Group companies have into the domestic institutions, it's around $11 billion, of which the group has said that $6 billion of cash is lying with Indian banks. So, the exposure levels are much lower in that sense. And also, it is important to understand that each of the businesses is governed by separate board and separate governance standards, and each of the standards and there are individual independent directors and governance standards which are governing, and GQG has invested in these companies based on those standards which have been put in place. So when GQG is saying that there is they don't see any impact happening on any of the company's performance going forward because of this indictment, it basically gives a thumbs up for the entire Adani Group companies. It also mentions that in the past we have seen several global companies getting indicted under the FCPA, which includes Glencore, which includes Thales, which includes Walmart, some of the big companies which have been there, and those have the process has taken a couple of years, but they have got off with minor fines or penalties as they have gone and settled with the DOJ and the SEC going forward. So while they are monitoring the entire process in that, they are holding on to the investments. In fact, they are bullish on it, and they see the future potential of these businesses to be very good going forward. Tamanna.
So rather a non-event, at least for them, right? Not material impact in terms of business, and they would retain the shares as we understand.
Yes, from the letter which has been sent to investors, they are holding on to the investment in all Adani Group companies. Of course, there are volatility which is there because of the price action which is happening in companies, and that's the reason why they have come out with a newsletter to the investors saying, stating their.
It's a client note, I think.
It's a client note sent, a memo sent across to all the investors who wanted to get an idea, and it's in the form of an FAQ which gives a good idea of how GQG looks at each of the companies. It says that all companies are well capitalized, they have enough cash flows. Adani Green may have some debt raising issue globally because of this incident, but even Adani Green is a cash flow generating company, so that's going to be is a non-issue for them as of now.
Yeah.